Hey, thanks for listening to our podcast. If you want to listen live in the central Indiana area, you can hear us on 93.5 FM and 107.5 FM.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
Segments you absolutely have to hear, and we'll take some calls if you guys want to a little bit later on. Rick Venturi joins us via the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. Holy crap. Can you believe this is where we are a month and a half later? Can you believe it?
It's staggering, and I think this one may be the most staggering for me because, I respected Tennessee. I mean, I think they're a solid team, maybe just a barely above 500 team, but they're not a great team. I expected us to come out, to come out after that Thursday night thing and to really be ready and, come out on fire and win this game at home. So, I'm still recovering from this one. I'm still trying to figure it out, to be honest with you. But, really, John, we really shouldn't be surprised because really in the last 5 weeks, this team has really lacked they've lacked so much, really. They've lacked staying power in almost every way. I mean, there's been breakdowns tactically, breakdowns mentally, and just physically being handled at times, And it's, one of the things, and I always go back because after the 12th game, now statistics this year really matter. And, when you look at some of the statistics from 18 to where we are right now, tremendous regression on offense. I mean, we were 17th. We're 17th in point scores last year at this time. We were 8th total offense. We were 19th. We were 7th. Passing, we're 26th. We were 7th, and our QBR, love him or hate him, our quarterback is the 22nd best QBR in the league. Our quarterback a year ago was 5th. And the two areas, to me, that we've really, really struggled, and they really tell the tale, and I normally make a big point of them, and I have to right now. One of the reasons that this team made such a dramatic improvement in 18 over 17 is they made drastic improvements on fourth down on both sides of the ball. They went from like 31st on defense, on offense, to 10th. Same thing on defense. Well, what's happened now after 12 games, we've had a big recession there. Our defense has slipped from finishing 9th a year ago down to 14th. And again, the biggest dramatic one on offense is we've gone from 10th in the fourth quarter to 19th. So, those are some big reasons that you are what that you are. And really, and I don't think anybody will, but you really can't make any excuses, and you can't minimalize, 24 unanswered points to a solid team. As I said, not a great team. And the last 7 minutes and 18 seconds, of that game has to be one of the biggest momentous meltdowns in recent Colts history. I mean, and we came apart at the seams. And I do agree with Frank's original assessment after watching it yesterday, watching it again today, is that every area of this team broke down in critical situations and has over the last 5 weeks. I don't want to hear about statistics. You can say, well, this unit played good enough. They didn't play good enough. And just some things that were really highlighted, and then we can discuss in detail. But I thought, obviously the first half we blew opportunities. We had 2 opportunities after turnovers. The first one, we screwed it up totally. We get into a 3rd and 1. We're going to throw a quick pass, the quick stick route. They stuff us right there in a critical situation. Now it's 4th and 1. We're going to go for it. and Kelly gets a tremendously bad penalty. I mean, now we go back and we have to kick a 100-yard field goal rather than being 4th and 1 and a makeable 4th and 1. The next time we get the ball after the turnover and we get stuffed, Allie Cox gets stuffed on the edge for a loss. Kelly gets stuffed inside. Then we get a 3rd down. Here comes the blitz. Nobody blocks Logan Ryan off the edge. He has to release it into the ground. So, we lost opportunities there. But really, all that being said, defense good in the first half. All that being said, when we come out at the half, and that is a great drive, and we go up 17-7. Now, I said to myself, this is exactly what we need. Now we got them on our heels, and this is going to be our day. And I really believe this. And Barry Krause, one of my great friends, and one of my favorite and best players I've ever coached, said this in the post game, and I agreed totally. I agreed at that moment. Is that drive against our defense just killed us? I mean, that when we go up 17-7, then we kick off to them. Now we got a killer instinct. If you're the 85 Bears, you're going to knock these guys silly. You're going to knock them out of there, and you're going to go on ahead and rout them. And they take the first 2 plays. And if you're in love with Leonard for what he does, just take a look at him on those first 2 plays. The first one, Lewis gets hooked on the end, and they block Leonard 10 yards downfield, the tight end, Jonnu Smith, and knocks him on his butt. And on the second one, they run a little toss over there, and Leonard has a perfect shot, and I guess he makes what they call a hamstring tackle. I don't know. But, Henry ran over him like a child for a 34-yard gain, and then they go down and scored. I thought that answer by them, that big answer and that recapture of the physicality of the game, honest to God, was a momentum changer. I really believe it was. I don't think there's any question about that. I think the 2 quarterback interceptions are inexcusable. Really, I'm watching it today. He gets hit, but he's got plenty of time. I mean, it's a delay hit, and then he releases the ball to Doyle and just lets it sail. The first one to Byers. And then the second one, the game is still very, very much on the line, and I have no idea what he's thinking. They're in that Tampa 2, but their middle linebacker, Evans, runs with Pascal. Pascal's in the 3 spot. Evans runs with him. He's got great coverage. He's got 2 safeties on top. I mean, there's nothing there, and he throws it to Ryan. And, all that stuff happens. It's absolute, to me, just, no excuse for that. That's just scary stuff, for a guy that earlier, was reluctant to give the ball up. Our blitz pickup, hell, I talked to you about this at Grant Park. I saw it at Grant Park. I never thought that we have been in sync with our running backs and offensive line, receivers, quarterbacks, even going back to training camp. We have so many free rushers, it's unbelievable. And I mean, guys that are just absolutely free runners, and it's not necessarily a maximum blitz. It's just, our backs had a bad day. Wilkins essentially had 2 mental errors on blitzes in the A gap. One he missed totally. The second one, by the time he got back, they were pressured. And then, of course, Williams, who went on the witness protection program, had the big hold in a critical.
And by the way, Frank said today that there's nothing wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. There was nothing negative.
I know. There's never anything negative over there. I mean, it's the happiest. What
would you think? Why would you think he?
There's 2 plays. There's 2 plays in a row. I don't know. I don't know how you could criticize him when somebody said today, well, he jumped to the edge. Well, there was nothing there. He jumped to the edge a week ago, and you loved it. I mean, this is a guy that can make you miss. And I thought the 2 things that he didn't look very good on, and they kind of happened in a row. He had an inside zone play, and he just slipped. He lost his footing and didn't get back to the line of scrimmage on a 1st and 10. And then, of course, the holding penalty was flagrant. I mean, it was a tackle. And I guess you could get pretty mad at a guy for that in that situation. But, it's just we have not have just not picked up blitzes. I can't imagine. A regression from a year ago for everybody. I mean, on that bootleg, I realize we don't block the end guy on line of scrimmage, but chip a guy like Casey, my God, that was a huge sack in the red zone on first down. And then we got Ryan coming off the edge every other down, and people have seen that all year. And so, I mean, that's just it. Our running game was inconsistent, and we threw for a lot of yardage. I thought that, in the first half, and this is something we talked about in the pregame, you and I talked about, throwing that ball quick on first down, getting, creating space for Pascal and for Doyle, and we did it. And we even got Johnson a couple of plays because we threw on first down, and early in the game they played a lot of soft zone. And so, I give them credit for actually creating space. But, as the game wore on and they began to play more man-to-man, then they got to where, they got to stuffing us in longer yardage situation because those guys are clunkers. I mean, the scheme has to get those guys open. But we didn't. We run it pedestrian, 82 yards, and we're not gonna win that way. We have to figure out how to run it better than that. Our special teams just suck. I mean, they're just like I don't mean to be crude, but they're just awful.
Well, you've come to the right show to be crude.
I know.
Welcome.
I know, and it's been that way, and we're in a happiness, and we always have confidence, full confidence in people, and this and that. And if it isn't one thing, it's another. But obviously, despite all the things we can talk about, negative and positive, we're first. We're right down there. To kick a field goal, to win the game, or at least go ahead and make it tough on them at that point. Let our defense hunt, and we give up a pick 7. It just takes the heart out of you. But it's been if it hasn't been one thing, it's been another. And our return game on the kicking game is on the witness protection program. There's no question about it. Our defense, again, that drive was awful. To me, when it got 17-7, that got them really back in the game. We can talk about, they do this, they do that. You gave up 149 yards to a phone booth guy who is the one biggest threat. They don't have outside receivers. I mean, you pack it in, but you can't have linebackers that won't tackle anybody when they come right at them. They can play with chest protectors. They don't even need shoulder pads at times. But 149 yards to a guy that you knew was their number one threat. And then Tannehill, 17 of 22, 77%, and, a 41-yard TD. So, I mean, if you say that's good enough to win, good luck to you. Good luck to you on that. And then, that unraveling from 7-18 to the end of the game was just awful. And it really started with another one of our folk heroes, with Nelson's hold on first down. I mean, really and truly, it was definitely a hold. He grabbed him. It's not even close. And all of a sudden now we're fourth. And all of a sudden we're 1st and 20. And so, it's very difficult. We check it down. We move it, but we come up short. And then the block 7 on the place kick, just unbelievable. I mean, Jeff Saturday said this morning the guy could have blocked it with his shin. I mean, he came so clean in the D gap. I mean, at least if you come from the outside, but right up in there, holy God, and that took the heart out of us. And then Jacoby turns around. It's still, I mean, okay, it's a bad deal, but it's a one possession game. So, we're still okay. Just relax. Come on, let's go.
Yep.
And then Jacoby panics and, again, forces that thing into cover 2. And, again, that was just mind-boggling because, I mean, it had nothing to do with pressure. The coverage was so defined. I mean, you could have read it from New Albany, for God's sakes. And, he threw it right to him, and then they get the ball and you say, well, let's hold on here, defense. Let's stop them now. We got to stop them right here. They've got to prove they can get in. We're still one possession, and then they throw that little play action to the right, and bring Ramsey across the, they bring Raymond across the grain over there. And, I know everybody's on Milligan on that, but that's not much different than what happened to Kenny Moore on the kid from Texas the week before on Fuller. Those are next to impossible routes to cover if you don't have some help. That's a 50-yard, and it was a dime anyway. But I have no idea what Odom and Hooker did on that. I have no idea. I look at it and I say, this looks like it's like a two-man, 5 under, 2 deep. But Odom is firing up to stop the run on 3rd and 5. And then when Hooker, when he reacts, he doesn't. It looks like he starts in the middle, but then all of a sudden he runs to the outside and covers air. So you essentially strung out, Milligan on, without any help whatsoever, without a blitz. It was absolutely crazy. So, you got that one done. That was that was the next best one. And then even you go down and you fumble for your third turnover with what's his name, Travis, and then just kind of to put the icing on the cake, what's his name jumps offside 92. He jumps off sides on the last play to let him just get into a kneel situation so they didn't have to run a play. So, yeah, that was a terrible, terrible 7 minutes and 18 seconds. So, man, oh man, you got to regroup from that one. And I've watched Tampa pretty close here in the last week. They have a lot of similarities to and we'll talk about that later. Yep. They have a lot of similarities to Tennessee in that their arrow is really pointing up. Tennessee was 4-1 coming in. Tampa's 3-1 and has won the 2 back-to-back for the first time all season. So it really doesn't let up. We go into the NFC South now, but it doesn't really let up.
It's Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. I'm going to take a break and come back. I want to get your thoughts on how you feel about Brissett right now. Compared to how you felt about him at the start of the year when they were 5-2, and if he is the guy for the future. I want you to bring up Tampa Bay as well, but I want you to talk about some of the questions we now have that maybe weren't necessarily questions even at the beginning of the season when there was a lot swirling around. I'm going to put you on hold, Rick. We'll come back with a lot of that and more. Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline rejoins us next.
From playing in a phone booth, becoming a Morse Reservoir All-Star, and earning status as an ambient player, it's time for the best of Coach Rick Venturi with a breakdown of yesterday's game. Brought to you by the District Tap. Craft beer on tap and damn good food. North at 82nd Street, just east of Keystone at the Crossing. And now downtown at Georgia Street and Meridian.
All right, back to the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline. I feel much better now. Rick Venturi is going to carry the load for the next
I do that to you every
minutes.
Monday, I know.
No. This had, you can probably tell, and you could tell yesterday. I wasn't feeling it yesterday either. So we're gutting it out at this point. But no, let's get back to yesterday's game. And I mentioned some things that maybe we thought we knew that we no longer know right now. And I want you to also talk about the future at quarterback and whether or not you believe Jacoby Brissett is that. And I know that he's only signed through next year, and I believe he's still going to be the quarterback next year. But where are you with the quarterback position right now with the Colts?
Yeah, I have to say that he's not wearing well. I've gone through a whole kind of evolution with him. I remember the 2017 season again, and I'll go all the way back to my our interviews in training camp. And in 2017, there was a lot to like about him, the intangibles, and yet there were things that I worried about. There were things that weren't there. The QBR was never there. The accuracy was never there. And then in training camp, to be honest with you, John, and I commented many times that I didn't think he looked very sharp. I thought that that he that there was a lot of carryover from 17. I thought the two areas that I really worried about was decision-making and decisiveness, which is kind of all one. I thought there was a lot of hesitation in training camp, always, just not sure exactly And I think that he hasn't, he's not the greatest accuracy touch guy. He just isn't. He had a check down he was throwing to somebody, and it was like a fastball from about 5 foot away. And so there was kind of a decisiveness in overall NFL. I mean, top NFL accuracy has been a question mark. And then, he had a pretty good 10-play sequence against Cleveland in the preseason. In Game 2, didn't play Game 3, but he had a pretty good 10-play sequence, and you started to feel a little bit better about him. And then, pretty good start to the season. You felt like going in that this was going to be a different kind of team, that it was going to be a team that if he made just enough plays, and he's really tough, and he did early in the season, he really got out of trouble. I mean, all the way to the Denver game where he makes the play to, out of the end zone, runs out of the grasp of Miller and makes the great throw downfield. But since then, since he hurt himself there, as he's come back, he looks a lot more like 17. He looks a lot more like that preseason doubt that I had. So, I would have to say, we have to let it play out. I mean, he definitely, you definitely have to let this whole season play out, because you have to judge those guys over time. There's times in this season, probably after Houston, that we would have said, no, we can win with this guy. And, as I look at the last couple games, and then particularly the two just, to me, inexcusable plays Sunday, then I really begin to wonder in terms of, solid NFL quarterback, not necessarily, not necessarily a guy that can put a team on his back and go. And so, I sound a little indecisive here, because I am. I'm not, again, there's always stuff I like about him, but the same things that I worry about him seem to always keep creeping back in, to the equation. And, particularly the bad decision Sunday, for a guy that wasn't doing it, a guy that was playing really close to the vest. But, I've said it a million times. There's no way that you can say that your quarterback manages a game. Your quarterback in the National Football League is going to have to make between 8 and 18 throws, between 8 and 18, depending on how the game is, who you're playing, and those throws have to be in there. There's no such thing as game management. Eventually, if you're going to win a lot of games, that guy's got to play really, really good, and he's got to be super, super accurate in this league.
Do you think that, because I mentioned this, I can't remember if it was last week or the week before, but it kind of felt like that he still had offensive restraints on him by the coaches and their play calling, as if it was similar to that of week number 1 in L.A. against the Chargers. Has that also been an issue?
It's hard to say, John, because you're playing with such clunkers out there. I mean, now don't get me wrong. I mean, Pascal has 100 yards, but I mean, it's totally schematically open. Same thing with Jack, schematically open, totally. And I give Frank and Sirianni credit in that first half. They did a really good job. They did exactly what I said they should do. They threw on first down. They didn't just try to hammer. They got in tight splits and bunches. They ran Jack on that sneak route. Nobody picked him up. Same way, nobody covered any of those guys. When they did cover them, they stopped us. They stuffed us. They couldn't do it. And there's nobody that can climb the field. There's no one that can climb the field. And there's no one you really trust on a 50-50 ball. So I think there is a restraint. I don't really believe, and I may be wrong on this, John. I don't really believe that the restraint is what they believe in Jacoby and what they don't believe in Jacoby. I think the restraint is they have no confidence that they can push it deep and not waste a lot of time, and they may be right. Now, the problem is you get in a game Sunday and you only run it for 82 yards, then all of a sudden you have to be able to throw it. And we did throw it early, but, as they got in the rhythm and this happens every week, teams just start to sit on us by the end of the game. They started bringing 5 and playing a lot more press man, and then we're kind of out of business. So, I know where you're going with that. I'm not sure I buy that approach. The approach, there's no question about that approach gives that impression, because we are playing in a phone booth, passing and running. There's no question about that. But I'm not sure it isn't a lack of confidence in being able to push it as it is Jacoby. Now, all of a sudden, when Jacoby does what he does Sunday, now that's going to shake you. That's going to shake you because, those are two plays that really just give the game away.
How much of this can be excused, if you wanted to, by the sheer number of injuries, especially at wide receiver?
I mean, this is the National Football League. We talked about this great roster. I heard everybody say our receiver core is so deep that everybody's going to pick up all our guys in the fall. And I was a little questioned about that because as well as I do, I've never been a big Funchess guy when they signed him. There was much better players out there that we chose not to pay for. We wanted that 1-year bargain, like which is our style. But we didn't make any moves there. I'm very disappointed in what happened with Kane. I'm still shocked that he's gone on a team that cannot run. Campbell, that's just been unfortunate. But I don't believe that with Campbell that you would have gotten a refined receiver as a rookie. You would have gotten a guy, though, that can at least stretch the field and give you some gadget plays and stuff like that. But, I mean, when Hilton goes out, this franchise dies. I mean, it's just – and it can't be that way. You got to be better than that. So I don't know that I buy that excuse because, it was all right there in front of you forever. You and I have talked about a real classy number 2 receiver forever and ever and ever. And eventually you have to invest in that guy.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how they handle it this year because – yeah, I think you got to have somebody that's a legit number 1, considering where age and durability issues are going with Ty.
Yeah, the trend on Ty is not good. The trend is not good. When he plays, he's very, very good. But in the last 2 years down the stretch, he's been on the witness protection program. So I have to agree with you on that. And the rest of them right now, you're playing with Walmart guys.
So Rick Venturi, he's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group Hotline, the segment you have to hear each and every Monday, right here on 93.5 and 107.5 FM, The Fan. Anything else as far as yesterday was concerned, and then a look ahead to Tampa with somebody running things that we know a great deal about in Bruce Arians?
No question about it. I think we've pretty much hit the waterfront there. In the end, this team has just not been good enough lately, to finish those fourth quarters. But unfortunately, it's no different than the NBA in the last 4 minutes and the NFL in the last 7 or 8 minutes. I mean, that's, every game is usually pretty tight. I mean, there's a few routes, but not many. Most of them go into the wire. And so if you're a good team, you find a way to win those. And a year ago, we were a really good fourth quarter team, and we've really regressed on that. So, that I think we have to look at. I don't think we can, run a happiness. I'd like to see a lot of accountability now. We've accepted all those special teams faux pas. It's been going on all season, and if you accept it, I said that a long time ago, then you'll just keep losing games. So we've done that. And, looking ahead, I mean, now we go into the NFC, my other division that I coached in forever, the NFC South now for 3 weeks. I think Tampa is very dangerous, John, for many of the same reasons that Tennessee was dangerous. In basically number one, they're in an upward trajectory, just like Tennessee was. They're coming in feeling really good. They've won 3 out of 4. Again, first 2-game winning streak of the year. They've got a terrific 2 coaches, Bruce Arians, who I've coached with. And you know this, as a matter of fact, when I took over the Saints in '96 at midseason, we fired the offensive coordinator, and I gave Bruce the job. And a lot of people won't realize this, but Bruce actually called his first plays in the NFL with me in 1996. And he is a tremendous football coach. I love his style. No crap, no kumbaya. He's going to tell it like it is. He's going to make you play. I also have a lot of respect as a defensive coordinator for Todd Bowles. Both of them are, they're high volume guys. They're game plan guys. They're not simplicity guys. And Tampa can really light it up. They're opposite Tennessee on offense, in that Tennessee, was a running team and possession control pass with Tannehill. The Bucs are just the opposite. I mean, they can light it up. I mean, they have the number 2 and number 3 yardage receivers. Godwin, 74 catches at 1,121. And Evans 66 catches at 1,096. So you've got 2 outside receivers. If you think of Godwin more in the slot, Evans all over, but big outside bankboard guy, both 1,000-plus guys. And they've got some compliments with it. O.J. Howard had a really good day yesterday. Bruce got on him. He was underachieving, but he caught 5 balls Sunday. He's a matchup problem at tight end. And then Perriman, they're getting good ball out of Perriman because he's getting a lot of one-on-one coverage because, the coverage goes to those big 2 guys. And Perriman's giving them pretty good football. They don't run it very well. And a lot of their offense is determined by, the quarterback who is he's an enigma in that at times he's a tremendous playmaker. I mean, he's really good throwing the seam routes. And he's really good scrambling. I mean, he scrambles better than what you would time a 40. He'll compete that way. I say scheme, scramble, but turn it over. Now, the other part of him, he's one of the most inconsistent players. He lacks pinpoint accuracy. He'll make bad decisions. A lot of his decisions come from extending plays and trying to make a play like he's done all his life as a kid when it's not there, and thus he leads the league in interceptions with 18. He has 4 fumbles. He can be a turnover machine. I think he has 100+ in his career. So, it's kind of what you get. Now, numbers-wise, I mean, they're number 4 scoring coming in, number 5 in total offense, and number 4 in the pass. So, I mean, this is a team that can light it up like they have the last couple of weeks. And then Bowles is very interesting. Their overall number scoring defense is bad, but they really coming on in the last 3 weeks. They and it's understandable because he doesn't have a high school defense that you can put in 2 weeks. It's taken them a while to learn the sophistication they play with, the scheme they play with. And I think because they got a lot of big name guys like Sue, they got Sue, they got Barrett in free agency, they got those linebackers. It's taken them a while with Villa to kind of get their roles. But I see it really, they're creeping up. They're up to 17th. They started way back in total. They're number 2 against the run, and they're number 14 in sacks. And like I said, they're high volume. I mean, they're going to give you looks. They're going to give you tough. We've gotten into some much tougher defensive concepts, even like Miami, even though they weren't real talented. But this is a more talented team. You have Sue and Villa inside that, boy, you got to block those guys on the run. And they have maybe my 2 favorite linebacker tandems in David, who has, I think he's second in the league with 90 tackles, and they're legit. They're not jump on the piles. They're not 8 yard deep. He will blow you up. And the rookie White is terrific. So those 2 guys and those 2 inside guys can really, really fly. Barrett, who, remember we talked about him in the off season. I thought he would be a quiet free agent signing on the edge. Well, he's only leading the league with 14.5. He just needed an opportunity. He was behind all those guys, Chubb and Miller in Denver, and he's got 14.5 off the edge. And I mean, he is a handful. And he can line up on both sides, but there better help Smith on this one. I'm just telling you, because he is a terrific edge rusher. And the guy that's come on the last 2 weeks, he's really was struggling with injuries, is Jason Pierre-Paul, who you will forget about. So, I mean, they can put a front up there, with Villa and Sue and Barrett and Pierre Paul, and then with those 2 linebackers. Their secondary was awful early. I mean, they were, and they still have bad rankings, but they have really improved. They're young. They've got some really young talent. And one thing, Bowles was tough as a player himself, and I do think he emphasizes toughness and hitters. And when you look at it, Davis, young kid, has done a really good job. I think he's second in the league in pass broken up. Whitehead, outstanding safety. Dean has 13. Bunting, the kid from Central Michigan who we had on our Morris Reservoir All-Stars, he's got about 6. So, this is a team that is playing, I think, the best football of the season here in the last 2 weeks. So, it will be a challenge, down there in the sunshine there in my second home.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Rick Venturi's on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. I got some questions for you. I want to double back.
Yeah.
Regarding Jonathan Williams and Frank Reich saying today in a teleconference call with local media that it wasn't anything negative he had done as to why he basically disappeared in that game.
Yeah, that's hard. That's kind of hard to fathom. Again, I think he slipped on a run. He had the terrible holding penalty that was flagrant and makes you look bad. And in the meantime, Wilkins was running pretty good. The guy that's just playing his tail off, and this may be part of the factor also, is Hines. Hines is playing as good as anybody on our offensive team, maybe better. And he's now he's doing the kick return guy with Rodgers going on RI, and that guy's just playing his tail off. So, they may have just figured at that point that the combination of Wilkins the hammer and Hines the spin was a better combination. But it's kind of amazing. Just life in the NFL. They make a folk hero out of you for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you're over there sitting, grabbing some bench. That's strange to me totally. But this is a strange season.
It is 5-2 to now 6-6, which is amazing, and I think we got just as many legitimate questions right now as we did at the beginning of the season.
Oh no,
yeah.
Absolutely. We may actually we might have even more, but I think number one. The receiver core is going to have to be really overhauled. You got to get some talent in here. You're not going anywhere. You're not going anywhere thinking you're going to run the ball like you did against Jacksonville, and that's a solution for winning. I learned that in 1982. My first year in the National Football League. You got to throw it and stop the pass if you're going to win in this league, and you got to be able to throw it. So. I think that receiver core has to be totally worked over, and that's not precluding, an eventual number one, much less a number two, because I think you're right on the trajectory of T.Y. health-wise. Now, the hybrid tight end situation, I'm sure that Ebron's days are numbered here, so, that's another spot right there. I think our offensive line has in some ways been underproductive. I think there's talent there except at right guard. But I just think as a unit and in combination with our running backs, receivers, I think our blitz pickup has been bad, really bad, and that's got to be looked over. Running back, Mac never makes it through a season for one reason or another. It's a shame, but he just doesn't. But that really hasn't been a big issue. We've actually picked that one up pretty good. And defensively, we're going to end up with pretty good numbers, but you're really judged on, keeping them 1 point below what you score. And so, until they do that, until they quit having the lapses and the periods of games, that they really either get gashed with big plays or get the ball run down their throat like they did in the third quarter, And then special teams is just, this was a strength of ours. And right now, other than punting, there's not, the place kicking is ridiculous. And I don't know. Maybe Hines actually might give us juice as a return guy. He was, he's a little shaky as a rookie. We threw him in there before he was ready, but, he looks ready now. So maybe we'll get something out there. But our return game is non-existent as well.
I was looking back on it this season, and the disappointment for me, and I said this at the outset of the show, is that most of this damage has been self-inflicted. and it's been against teams that they should beat, even with injuries and even with Jacoby Brissett and even the whole Andrew Luck saga and all of that. And I'll double back to the Pittsburgh game in the second quarter, and I think the game-changing moment of the year was Minkah Fitzpatrick in the 96-yard pick six in that second quarter, because the Colts looked like they were going to go in, and they ended up scoring again after that too. I think if you put them down, Pittsburgh's not what they are now, and maybe that changes the dynamic altogether for the Colts, just maybe.
Oh, I think you could make a real point for that. I don't think there's any question about it, because you're gonna put them away, and they're not very good at all on offense, but. Mike is doing a great job. You talk about, injuries. They've got it. They played without Schuster. They played without Connor. They're down to their third quarterback, not their second quarterback, but their defense is making plays when they have to. Their defense will shut you out if they have to. That's the difference when you talk about defense. I don't talk about ranking. I don't talk about this. I'm talking about on that day that you have to shut somebody out, then you have to shut somebody out.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline. His normal spot at 4:30 each and every Monday right here. And this has been an all too familiar tone here recently. And, we'll see where they go from here. I mean, you got to win out, and you have to have a buttload of help here the rest of the way.
Okay, John. And like I said, we're going in that NFC South and going down to the, warm weather climate here. Maybe that'll help us in Tampa. And then, of course, you'll have a big, national Monday night game, which is not a treat with all those fans coming off that French Quarter on Monday night. I've been there.
I want to be down there completely in the bag.
Well, are you going down there for that one?
Because I'm going with Bullseye, and I turned 50.
Oh, cool.
I turned 50 on that night, so we're all going. And
oh no, you picked the right game now. You got to take care of yourself in that French Quarter now.
Everybody on that
I can
flight,
help you out there.
Everybody that's going with Bullseye knows that their one priority is making sure I am babysat properly. Or seated or whatever it is. Yes. So.
When the combine actually moved to Indianapolis. People don't realize this. It moved from New Orleans, and the reason, New Orleans was a really good site, but you couldn't keep kids off the streets. So
no doubt.
That's
a dangerous combination right there. It is. Hey, keep in touch with me this week. As always, thanks for everything, man. I appreciate it.
I'll talk at you.
Rick Venturi on the Andy Moore Automotive Group hotline.